different people, and it's like they are not allowed to have conversations on how they are feeling, and in most cases how they are thinking, to the level that they end up keeping things to themselves. And it leads us to the conversation we're going to be having this morning that has to do with men's mental health. Now, June happens to be Men's Health Month, and today the conversation is going to be centered on mental health, simply because we've seen different reports that have been involving men committing suicide, men committing crimes of passion, and some of those can be linked to the very conversation on mental health, because by the time someone executes killing himself, that means they have really reached a point where they cannot do it anymore. So join me in this conversation. Do share your views on our WhatsApp number, and of course we'll be waiting to hear from you and what your take would be on the very same matter. But I earlier on promised you we do have a special guest in the house that we're going to be having this conversation with. But also I have Uncle Bob, that is Robert Chirabo, and Olive Monica Najuma in Studio B that are going to be with me as we discuss this very same issue. And of course, the two gentlemen that are going to be here will probably help us discuss this even further. But a special guest is none other than Pastor Cyrus Rod. Not new to your face, and definitely it's going to be a wonderful conversation. So let's check in and see how he's feeling. I think I should ask him, how is your mental health?
That's a very good question. Thank you so much, Chantel. I'm doing great.
It's good to have you here, and I'm glad we're going to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much.
Right. So straight to the question, how is your mental health? How are you feeling?
I think I'm doing very great. When you talk about my mental health, you're talking about how am I feeling. Now that goes to my emotional part.
Yes. Where is your mind?
So when it comes to mental health, you're talking about the emotional part. You're talking about my psychological part,
right?
How I'm thinking, emotional, how I'm feeling. And then my social part, how I interact with people, how I deal with people, how I work with people.
Right.
So the mental health is literally put together in these three sections or divisions. My thinking, my feeling, and my social behavior.
Right.
And I'm doing very, very great when it comes to my thinking. When it comes to my emotional behavior, I've matured and I still mature. When it comes to my social, the way I deal with people, women, men, I'm feeling so great.
Great, and we're glad you're feeling great, because it would be nice to have a conversation. But before I get to the rest of the team, I'd love to ask you, have you been at a point where even yourself or the people around you have questioned or have raised the concern on your mental health?
In that position, like feeling down, low, depressed. And that, yeah, I've been depressed before.
Right.
I've been depressed before, feeling low, not knowing what's coming in next, and not knowing who to talk to. And the only way, having been there, hopeless, not sure tomorrow is going to be mine, and didn't know who to talk to until I started talking to God.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you, Pastor Cyrus. Now let's cross over to Robert and Olive and check in and see. One, we are having a conversation on mental health. Now let me just head to you, Olive. Yeah.
Yes.
We're talking about mental health, and we would love to distinguish it from mental illness. So let's start from there.
Well, thank you, Chantal. And it's very important that we distinguish what mental health is and what mental illness is, because sometimes people are talking about mental illness or mental health related challenges, but they're calling it mental health. If when we talk about mental health now, here we refer to someone's well-being or an individual's well-being, emotionally, psychologically, and socially functioning well. There we are talking about their mental health, and this encompasses the ability to handle daily life, relationships, and challenges. So let's say you are having challenges at work, you're in a good form to handle them. You can get out of your bed and do the things, the basics that you usually do. Now, when do you know that you are facing mental illness, or you're now going the slippery slope of mental illness. This is usually, and mental illness in itself refers to a diagnosable disorder which affects mood, thinking, or behavior, and can cause distress, impairment, or dysfunction in daily life. Key examples here are, in most cases, people say, I woke up, but I couldn't get out of bed. You do not pick interest or no longer have interest in the things that usually excite you or in the normalcy of life, including waking up, getting out of your bed, making your bed, small things, by the way, that you normally do without thinking so much, making your bed, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, simple things like that. If you wake up and you find that you do not have the energy, you're not sick, you don't have a temperature, but you feel you do not have the energy to do the basics that you usually do. I've had stories of a lady, I was listening to a podcast, and this lady said, I was so depressed that there is a time I took 2 weeks without taking a shower. I was smelling even to myself, but I couldn't get the guts to get into the bathroom and take a shower, brush my teeth, comb my hair, simple things. Then here we might be facing an issue of mental illness. But of course, that is like depression. But Chantal, it goes deeper. There are so many mental illnesses out there that many people are living with and they have no idea.
Right, and Robert, I would love to hear from you, especially on what to you could be the causes of mental health challenges.
Well, first, now that we are in a month where we're looking at mental health on the side of men, I must say that about 1 or 2 factors that really you find bring us to a situation where we are today. The first factor being our culture when it comes to the side of men. Men are usually brought up to be people who can handle everything. And most of the times, there's a saying that a problem shared is a problem half solved. Now, with the way men are raised, it's like you don't have to open up. That's why you'll find someone, and this is common. If you take attention and not on the streets of Kampala, maybe you're moving, you're going to find a huge number of men talking to themselves. I don't know if you've come across this. Even those you think they're very smart, gentlemen, but talking, leave alone those that have gone to mental illness. And sometimes we'll think it's normal, but he's talking to himself, but if he had shared this to someone else. So the way they are brought up in terms of our culture has a great impact on men, contrary to what women go through.
Right.
Because a woman can freely share, they have besties, they can freely share, but the men, there is the way they hold on. Then also, now that you have Pastor Cyrus, even the Bible itself, there is that element of how it describes a man should be. Right from childhood, body hardened, a man, and you find that this makes a man conceal himself so much. And at the end of the day, there's something boiling inside them. That's why they end up, certain things are not coordinating very well. How they socialize with people, how they handle their relationships, how they're able to do simple tasks, how they're able to handle trying moments. I've ever seen someone and you're asking yourself, but if this person is not on drugs, if this person is not having a mental challenge, where does he get, how come he gets upset so easily?
Right.
Where does he get what drives him to get annoyed that very fast?
The anger issues.
The anger issues, and you ask yourself, but later you understand that, well, this person is having a mental challenge. And the problem we have in our country, I don't know, maybe Pastor Cyrus can tell us, we don't have people, the experts that someone can go to. If they're there, they're very expensive, because the problem we usually have that mental challenges here in Uganda, we only look at them when it's gone into mental illness. That's when people will say, so and so should now see a doctor. But I think it begins from a certain point before it
Yes.
goes to the worst.
I
That
agree,
is very
because
true.
it will
Thank you.
begin as maybe signs and symptoms of depression, and then there is depression, now there is anxiety, now someone is getting panic attacks, and it is now escalating into something that now needs a doctor or a professional to handle.
Thank you. And yes, Cheryl.
And that is the challenge that we have. Now, when it comes to the ladies, it's very easy for them because we're in the month of May for men now, as we're looking at this issue. For the ladies, it's easy because they share, because they feel there are maybe a weak spaces compared to the male. It's easy to identify these at the early stage.
Yes. Well, it's also true that we've not had this conversation enough for us to be able to say this person is going through this, and it could be a mental health challenge. Now, back to you, Pastor Sarasword. The conversation on men's mental health, I would love to hear from you. As a man of God, for example, I'm sure you've done counseling for some of these men. You've had the stories of some of the challenges they go through. What do you think could be the causes of these mental health issues that seem to be driving some men to committing suicide, to killing people, to having anger issues, to isolating? What could be some of those causes?
I would like to go ahead with what my brother just mentioned when he said that the way we've been brought up, our cultural settings, that men are supposed to be perfect.
Right.
Okay?
That is true.
Men are supposed to be perfect. You never make an error. You never go wrong. Everything has got to be perfect. So that is one of the major things. And where does this come from? When man falls, the first thing he does is to say, I don't need God. And that is a weakness. Look at all the churches. Almost 85% are full of women. Where are the men? I don't need God. I can make it. Because now when sin comes into man, man begins believing I can do without God. And this is where the error is. So when he begins believing I can do without God, so he tries to be God. So this is the pressure of trying to be perfect.
Right.
And in trying to be perfect, they tell you when it comes to emotions and all that, you can't bring it out. Because, for example, crying. Man is going to see crying like a weakness.
Right.
When it's actually part of the emotions that God has put in us to be fully human. You can express yourself. It's a way of connecting. It's a way of communicating when you're crying. It's a way of communicating. Now, when you see all this happening and man cannot be able to do it, man cannot even say, I am sorry. Why? Because this pressure that you are perfect. So you got to make sure you don't show any imperfection. So the whole thing, you can list about 10 points or whatever, but the real issue is about the pressure, the independence from God, that I can be able to operate without God. I can be able to run my life. I can be God. Now, when trying to be God, he doesn't know how to handle the emotions. He thinks I suffocate them, which is wrong. When you cry, they'll tell you, hey, man up, man up. Hey, be a man, be a man. Don't cry. Okay, I won't cry. I won't cry. You don't even know who you are.
And this is from childhood, meanwhile.
And this is from childhood.
Right.
As they are growing up, as men are growing up, it's from childhood.
Right.
And then when it comes to talking to a woman, remember, mental health even involves the social interactions.
Right.
So when it comes to talking to a woman, I look at Chantal, she's beautiful, and I'm thinking, can I talk to her? Can I talk to her or can't I? Will she say yes or will she say no? Now I come in, but I'm supposed to be a man. Hey, Chantal, what do you think? I think I got something for you. And then when you look at me, you're like, nah. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I blew it up. So I start abusing you, the anger issues and all this stuff. Why? I should never show weakness. Why? I've been deceived that I am perfect. I am God. I should not show any kind of weakness or any kind of failure, lest I will not be man enough.
Now, having gotten to that point where we now understand where the problem is coming from, we need now to put our focus on where do we go next from here? How do we change this narrative in society?
I love this so much. The best thing we gotta do is to believe I am human.
How do I even put that in a 30-year-old man or 35 or even 40?
That every man, whether you're religious or not, you got to know I was created by God. So whether you're 40 years or 50, you got to understand this, that in whatever is happening, I need God. Without God, I can never be man. Without God, I can never be a man. You know, so I need to humble myself and reduce the numbers. If it's 85% in church and they're women, let it rise to 50% men, and then we can be able to see how we get better. Because look, this mental health is about connection.
Okay.
It's about connection. Why do men commit suicide or people commit suicide? Because I lack connection. I feel so down. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know how to express my feelings. I don't know how to connect. Okay? But when I get to God, I get to discover that I am loved by God unconditionally. I've been accepted, and I have an opportunity to grow. And in that commitment to God or yielding to God, I discover who I am, and I'm able to say, hey, that means I can even say sorry. Yeah, it's acceptable. It's also acceptable to say, I'm sorry, and I am wrong, and please forgive me, and hey, I feel sad, I don't know what to do, and I roll the tears. It's all being a man. I'm expressing the emotions, and I know how to control them. I am not driven by them. Why? Because I'm empowered by the one who made me as a man.
But then, Pastor Rod, you know, you're speaking to someone who has an idea of what Christianity could be. An idea, just an idea.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at someone who has grown up in a family, maybe with guardians who are not even Christians, or who don't believe in God, or who have no idea of what God is and what religion is and what can be done. Let's try and speak to this person before they even, I believe there is more that we can do aside from going to God and getting to know ourselves through Him. Now, the question would be, before I get there, I'm even struggling to go to church. I'm struggling to trust the other pastor because I've seen different things that pastors are doing. So how do we help this person as well?
The first thing they need to know is I am human.
Okay.
I am not perfect. You get it?
Right.
So if I am not perfect, then I need somebody that I can talk to. I can open myself up. Number two, emotions are part of being human being.
Right.
Okay? Emotions are part of being human being, are part of being a man. So I can learn how to express them instead of having outbursts, instead of failing to control them. So they're part of me. And it's okay to make a mistake. These are the simple things that can help you maintain mental health. Right. It's okay to make a mistake. You can be able to grow from them, because the pressure in mental health among men is you are perfect, you can never make a mistake.
Right. And Robert, I'd love to hear from you as a man. I believe there could be a time, maybe you almost slipped into, or probably you could have slipped into, maybe a stressful point of your life or a depressing point of your life. And what would you wish you had known at that point that could have helped you in the moment?
Well, first I want to hit on what Pastor Sarah has talked about, to the men to know that you're also human, you have emotions. If you have a Bible, just turn to John 11:35, and that is the shortest verse in the Bible, and that is Jesus wept. Now, Jesus, the Son of God, when he looked at his friend Lazarus, if I have that right, Pastor, Jesus Christ did cry. Some translations bring it out, and Jesus began crying. So one of the things I learned is, men, you should not keep to yourself. Sharing, letting the emotions come out. You know, because sometimes there's something that is with you, you don't want to let it out. And like you said, I reached a certain point in my life. But one thing that greatly helped me was one of my cousins who came around, and she was so much on me that we later shared. And she said, no, come on. A, B, C, D is the solution to that. But I was like, no, this I can handle. And I was just hitting rocks. So men should know that you have emotions. and you must know how best to handle them. Sharing, speaking to people, having social clubs, because not all of us may be churchgoers, like Pastor has said, but even these social clubs, you know, having friends. Best friends are rare for men because we don't have that closeness. But having friends and sharing, socializing, not keeping to yourself. Why sometimes people commit suicide is because, well, you know, when you keep to yourself, you over keep to yourself. Socialize. Some of these groups you see people in, Lottery, various social clubs, is not just for fun, but having where you can wash off that stress.
Great, thank you, Robert. Now, Olive, as a lady on the team, how do we even assist these gentlemen to make sure that we preserve their mental health as a contribution that we can make to the other side? Because I strongly believe, you know, we cannot talk about, say, women emancipation without talking about the men. So we cannot talk about men's mental health without talking about women. Because listen, if you've grown up in a proper family setting, you realize that the woman plays an important part in raising that boy child. Now, if that very woman is the one who says men do not cry, that is the start of our problem, partly. So, Olive, how do we assist the men to preserve mental health?
You see, when we say men do not cry, in most cases you think that it is fellow men telling other men that a man does not cry, which is true. They do say that to themselves. But I'll tell you, as a mom, mothers break boys' spirits from a very young age. You have a son and you have a daughter, but the emotions of the son are supposed to be kept or buried inside. He breaks down, and the first person to tell him, why are you crying, or boys do not cry, is usually his mother. So women, there are things we say to men from when they are boys into men, and these are the things that usually break them. Now, I know that there are many other factors that lead to mental illnesses, especially among men, because according to reports, it shows that 1 in 4 Ugandans suffers from a mental illness, but 70% of suicide deaths in Uganda are among men. And of course, 44% of mental illnesses in Uganda are depression, and 24.5% of mental illnesses in the country are anxiety disorders. Guess what? Many of these are also among men. So as women, we need to be more supportive and not use the things men tell us or their vulnerability against them. Many times, and I've been listening to Robert speaking, and even Pastor Rod, when they said, you're not supposed to pretend or make it look like you're okay all the time. But guess what, Chantal? In most cases, when a gentleman becomes vulnerable and tells certain things to a woman, the next time they have a fight,
that's why you're
going,
like this.
Exactly. That's why your mom left your father. That's why your father left your mother.
Right.
Some of these statements, we think we are angry, but some of these statements are the ones that are going to make the man recline into himself and not talk to us about things that bother him again. And for me, there is one thing I've learned. And as a mom and even as a partner, I've learned one thing, that if you want to break a man, use words. Because even the Bible says the power of life and death is in the tongue. So the words a woman says will break, may not physically break a man, but they will surely break his spirit. And many ladies have broken men's spirits. So as women, let's go back to being kind. Let's extend the grace that we need. We are emotional beings, but even men, even if they're not hardwired to be as emotional as us, are also human and emotional beings. So before you utter those words, man, there are women who even say, hey, I gave him. She didn't punch him, but she said the most demeaning, the most heartbreaking, the most ruthless of words, and that guy's spirit was broken. So we need to do better.
Thank you, Olive, and that is how women can be supportive to the men. Just a question to you, Pastor Rod.
Yeah.
Do you think that some of the things women say to men are some of the causes of the breakdowns that men get?
Some of the things that women say to men, you know, I really don't want to blame the woman for what she said to me.
So
That it's the cause of my falling apart.
So
yes, many men can fall apart because of that, but that should not be the trend.
be.
Okay?
So you're of the belief that life is 1% what happens to us and 99% how we
Now
react.
you know exactly what I'm saying. So if a woman comes to me and says, you're nothing, because most men have kind of inclined and said, oh no, oh, I'm not going to talk anything because the other time you told me my mama died. I mean, you're just being ridiculous. You got to get up and make a choice. You talk to me and you call me, or you name call and you use what I said against me. I come to you and I say, hey, baby, I still love you. And I want you to understand that that which you're using against me, I've learned how to overcome. We can learn how to talk and mature and be able to go through these without using it against one another. Right. I mean, I need to make a choice that I'm going to be mentally sound, that I'm going to stand and be there and not be broken. It's a choice.
How many men know that it's a choice to actually protect themselves from what the world is throwing at them? Look at workspaces. You can walk into the office and your boss throws something at you and your whole day is ruined. You can't think straight. You're feeling worthless. You're feeling like you're not doing enough, and that has already taken a toll on you. This happens to both men and women, but here we're talking about men. Now, there is someone out there who does not know that they need to protect their minds from what is being said to them. Briefly, how do we protect our minds from letting what is being said and done to us get to our minds and affect us?
I love what you said earlier on. You said that life is about 1% of what happens to us and 99% of how we react. So if anybody tells me anything, it's my choice. The Bible tells me that a man is ensnared by the words of his own mouth, not the words of other people's mouths. Okay? Right. So you can say, hey, Cyrus, you're a loser, you're what? I'll look at you and I'll say, that's none of my business. That's your part. What you say to me is not going to affect me, but what I believe and say to myself is what is going to affect me. So anybody out there who feels, oh, I went to my workplace, my boss said I'm a loser, I'll never make it, and so now I'm down, I can't move on. Well, you're just being ridiculous. Get yourself up. We cannot come and babysit you and join your pity party. Get up, make a choice, and say, I'm going to guard my mind. That is not me, this is me. That is not me, this is me.
Thank you, Pastor Rod. I still have another question in the same, because the people who have been broken from childhood, their self-esteem is down, they have the inferiority complexes. Now they get into, they've grown up and they don't even realize that it could be an effect of their childhood. But before we get into that discussion, I do have some comments. George from Kumi says, a man as being ahead of a family according to marriage arrangement tends to be overwhelmed with a lot of family issues. That's why you see examples of the former East African president dying, yet all East African presidents, yet all their women are still alive, and goes ahead to list them. Then also, someone says, good morning, this is tender poverty combined with the idea of not accepting the situation the person is in and how to deal with it has driven men emotionally unstable and sick. Then this is a good morning. Thank you, sir, for the advice. This is Melina. I appreciate for the help that you're giving. Then good morning. I feel I have a mental health challenge. Where can I get services to help? And Robert talked about some pleasant centers that we can go to get help. The first thing I would talk about would be church. Would be the first place to go to, though sometimes we do not know which church to trust and which to go to. That's where the challenge is. And then this person has quite a lot to say. Thank you for the pertinent questions. Since you're dealing with men's health, whereas I'm a priest, I'm afraid to say that many look up to me as a model, a mentor, a father, and close to God than they may be. Therefore, those of us who have God in us, we ought to be carriers of God's true love in expression. Like Olive is saying, your wife, your sister, your mother can make a difference in the man's life. And goes ahead to quote Proverbs 18:22. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and receives favor from the Lord, love and marriage. This scripture helps us to appreciate the power of a woman, whereas what my brother Cyrus is saying is true. He needs to approach men as lost and speaking from your life as a pastor. So I think he means to say that not everyone is, you know, already on the path to salvation, or know that I have to go to God. Some of them are lost, and they need to be rescued. UBC happy this program in My Religion Islam. All this was said will happen. Satan will play a role to challenge a man, making a man law. You see, women and children are being used by Satan. So all this is programmed by Satan. I don't know what your take is on that.
Let me say this, you know. Talk about women and children are being used by Satan. Now, I think that is stereotyping. That is so negative. That is so bad, because Satan can use anybody, even us males.
Yes.
Okay? And then I would like to mention the first responder over there talked about East African presidents.
Yes.
All of them died,
and their women,
are still alive. Our number one problem as men is, when you talk about mental health, I mentioned something and I don't want to forget it, is that we actually need to learn how to connect. Okay? The presidents are dead, their wives are still alive. The number one problem I believe that we men have, and when we become husbands, we do not connect with our wives.
Oh, yes.
Right.
I agree.
We sit out all alone, we bottle everything up in us, and we never make our wives our best friend. So down the road, we carry a lot of baggage that kills us while our wives are still okay. And they keep living their lives without the pressure of perfection, just trying to be a woman, okay? And that is so simple. So I would say that it's not about, well, the men carry are overwhelmed. I should never be overwhelmed when I have my wife to talk to.
Right.
But you see, Pastor, that's where my argument came from. In most cases, the gentlemen close off and they build walls up there, up like against, they protect their hearts with these high walls and don't let their wives come in, just because at one point the wife said something or reacted in a way. Because in most cases, wives are very sarcastic, and when you're sarcastic, the power of the tongue, the power of words, there is a way it gets to many men. So maybe how can men ensure that, in as much as the wives can sometimes come off as rude or arrogant, that they still do not shut them out entirely?
You know, it's quite something that I can say. If we are going to blame somebody else, if I blame you for my behavior, I will never change. I need to take responsibility and say, look over here, this is how I want to live my life, and I make a choice. You may talk to me sarcastically, you may talk to me ugly, but I'm going to talk to you in the right way until you learn what love is. I'm going to love you until you learn what love is. So that's the responsibility that men should do. Somebody's going to ask, where do I get the love? It's work. Reach out to God, reach out, find where love is, because He's love. Then begin practicing it, because you call yourself the head. And if you're the head, then you got to bring the love inside the home. So I would say, you can talk to me any way you want to, but you will not determine how I behave. How I behave is my choice. And if any man is going to make a difference, make a choice on how you behave, how you react, or you respond, irrespective of how a woman treated you. Because if you carry along, oh, she hurt me so bad, then that's already mental health problem that is going to lead to mental illness, and then it's going to be a disaster. So in order for you not to grow into mental illness, you got to learn how to love. And even when you're hurt, you express love, you forgive. It will do you very good.
Well, Pastor, but also there is one thing that I'm looking at here.
Okay.
When my sister here talked about men building walls, I'll give you an example. I've seen a number of men who lose their jobs but don't disclose this to their women. And you find that a man had about 3 months or 2 months. One time I was sharing with a friend who said his father spent 2 years without a job. But you see, he couldn't disclose. They would see him leave home because they feel there are certain things that you must struggle. We are brought up that way as a man. Now, if I come to my better half and show her and reveal to her that right now I'm in a helpless situation, now what is going to happen? I come back, I tell Monica comes and is like, well, we need this, and I was fired, I can't do this. Many men live a life of pretense.
Yes. But why? The big question here is...
They have that, don't expose your weakness. Because when we try in our way of opening up, then you get to know what I'm really going through. Then sometimes that can be used against me. And Pastor Sarah says that, well, you won't determine, but you see, when you're in a fix, keeping your head up amidst these, look at the time of COVID-19, how marriages broke up.
Yes.
Because men found themselves unable to provide, and what happens is they lost their self-esteem.
Yes.
It's just today that even men are waking up to marrying empowered women. Person looks at you and says, she has a job, she drives, she has this, she has this. I can't go for it. So with that cycle, Pastor, how do we break even? Because some of these things are since you land on earth. So you hear, I must be. Now, when you grow, they tell you, you're now starting marriage, you're the head of this family, you know, you must always keep hope alive. Now, who do I run to when I've lost hope?
And before Pastor
before
Pastor Rod, yes, answers Robert. Pastor, when I talk about women, I'm not actually blaming my kind, but I recognize the part where we fail our mates. I recognize the fact that a home is supposed to be a safe space. And taking from what you've said, you need to be able to break down and tell your person, this is what I'm going through. But adding to Robert's question, why is it that a man will lose a job for 2 years and he has to pretend that he has a job, walks out of the home every single day as if he's going to work? Is it because the home is not secure, or is it because he has lost the self-esteem and is trying to hold on to whatever it is that is left of it?
Well, Pastor Rod, that question will lead us to our winding and parting shots. We also do have some feedback that we'd love to give out, but let's hear from you, because it's a very important question that questions some women's support to the men, but also questions men's can I call it comfort when it comes to expressing vulnerability?
Now, really, that's a very important question. But this is where the whole problem comes from. Number one, the beginning. When I meet a woman, I am projecting an image of who I am not. Why do I do that? I fear rejection. When I fear rejection, I project an image. I show you something of who I am not, and then you buy into that image. Now I live a life of an image, and I never live a life of who I am in truth. Okay? So now the day I lose my job, I've been building my identity around this image I projected. So when I come to you and I say, now the image is collapsing, you're going to walk away from me. So men build their lives on lies. I begin to befriend you from day one. I tell you I own a limousine, I own a private jet, I do this, I do that, I am the CEO of this bank, I am this, and you buy into that, but you never buy into me.
Right.
You get me?
Yes.
Now when everything begins to fall apart, how do you expect me to come to you and say,
the jet is nowhere.
The jet is no more. I'm going to keep running for my life. But there are people, if I start good and I open myself up, even in hard times, I will not be scared to open myself up. We shall drink water in the night together. We shall starve together. And we shall be able to move together. So it's about the beginning.
Robert said not in Uganda.
I do have some feedback from our viewer. And good morning, UBC. To tell the truth, men go through a lot, but they are ignored. The women we live with, they break our minds a lot. Some end up traumatized, but no organization has come up to fight for them whereas women, simanyi, gender-based violence, human rights, stuff like that. This is Godfrey from Wikwe. Godfrey from Wikwe, you know, it starts with you as an individual. How are you helping your fellow man to overcome? And if you are not, then also we would say there is always, we can spread out the blame if we are to actually start doing the blame game. Now, this is Odika John Martin. Thanks so much for the advice. This message has empowered me today, and I will never be the same again. Requesting for phone contact for the pastor. This is from Kaberamaido Police Station. I believe when he's giving the parting shots, he can give a contact that they can use to reach out. For those that probably would be interested in counseling, that will be determined as we conclude. Now, good morning. Thanks so much. Women go through a lot. Let me ask Pastor, what will you do if you realize someone has been repeatedly sleeping with your wife? Now, this is something that takes a toll on men a lot. And I'd love to hear from Pastor Cyrus. And then also, good morning to you, UBC. Even us in the Quran, chapter 64, Allah warns men about their wives and children that they are fitina, that is trial to men. They can cause mental problems. My friend's wife, tell about him. Okay, I think meant to say tells about him to other people who visit him, and whatever she spoke was wrongly. Okay, I'm not getting what you're saying, but I hope I can articulate it better. And so I think what he's trying to say is the friend's wife was telling the man's secrets to other people, and this made the man lose feelings for his wife. Another one, the wife reports the house affairs to her home members, not knowing that it weakens the man's love and feelings for her, and it hurts. Now, thanks for the care. This is another person saying thanks for the care. Why are dependent on women psychologically? I think meant to ask why are men dependent, or why should they be dependent on women psychologically? And then someone again comes back. This is Kamara Patrick comes back and says, Brother Robert, like anyone has shared about how some men live, how were you nurtured, your nature, the environment from which you grew, work or live. These issues affect us. Finally, Pastor Rod is right too. Women need the truth about the man in their lives. And now, Pastor Rod, someone asked the question, what would you do? I think let's not put you, but what would a man do if they found out that their woman was cheating?
If their woman was cheating
because it
repeatedly.
seems like this person was affected or saw it somewhere and it triggered their mind.
You see, one of the problems we do, or we usually find, is that when a woman cheats, the first thing is to simply condemn her. Mm-hmm. We never look at the background. We never look at the environment. How did you get to this point? So I believe the best thing is to sit down with her and first find, how did you get to this point? Where have I not been a man as I ought to be? How is our communication life? How is our sex life? How is this? Because once you build the connection, cheating is not really a way that comes in. Once you build the connection. So before we really condemn her, try to love her and reach out to her, rather than bringing the hammer out and saying, she's so evil, all women are cheaters, and all that. Just sit down with her. I think that's the best thing. She's your wife. Sit down with her.
Right. Thank you so much, Pastor Rod. We're getting into the conclusion, and we are already over, we've overrun our time a bit. Parting shots from Robert and Olive in like 30 seconds, and then I'll conclude with Pastor Rod.
Don't keep to yourself. Find someone to share. And also, in every situation, put God. Prayer works wonders.
Thank you, Robert. Olive.
Women, we need to be more supportive of the men in our lives, and this starts with our sons. We need to build them up rather than break them with our words. But you are not solely responsible for the problems that men are going through mentally. Where you can help, please help. where you can't help, advise on where they can seek the help. It can be church, it can be professional help, but let us support our brothers, let us support our friends and our men. It's very important.
Thank you, Olive. Thank you, Robert. Pastor Rod, your parting shots. And also, if there could be a contact someone can use to reach you in case they need of counseling or a further conversation.
Okay. My parting shots are very simple. Number one, I want you to know and understand, as a man, make a choice to be a man. Don't blame your environment. Don't blame your woman. Don't blame your mother. Don't blame anybody. Stop the blame game. Take the responsibility. The man speaking to you right now, I never grew up with my mother. My father was hardly in my life. So I would blame my whole environment, but I made a choice that I'm going to be the man God wants me to be. So I say to you, make a choice to be all that God wants you to be. And that is going to bring vulnerability, because there's no connection without vulnerability. Cyrus is my name, and my number is 0772-448804. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation, and for the comments that are still coming in. They are highly appreciated. Unfortunately, our time seems to be fast spent, and we are glad that you got to be part of the conversation. Hopefully, you have picked something. My parting shot to you, dear men, we really care about you, and you can find a safe space only if you get a very good friend and a connection with, could be your brother, or even a lady, but do not keep to yourself. At the end of the day, you will be hurting not just yourself, but even those around you that love and care for you. Now, let's get into a very short break. When we come back, Jerome Paul Sonko will be giving us a further breakdown into yesterday's budget reading as it happened, and how best we can have this conversation and any details that you could have missed. So please do stick around.